welcome back. I'm Alfred Lamberwalt Weber, and today, wow, I've got to take a deep breath. We're in the presence of an extraordinary panel because today is the day that everybody steps inside their avatar and lets their inside being comes outside of their avatar, I guess, if that's the right way to express it. And the panel that we have for today is really a very special one. And the concept of the panel is to speak, all the panelists will be speaking openly as their inner multidimensional being, and that they've come fully to acknowledge and that they are, and how they work with their interdimensional being, you know, in life, and how this has made a difference for them, and how they choose to interface with the changing 3D/4D Earth time-space dimension that we're in, and you know how it works with other interdimensional beings that are incarnate in other avatars, and you know, a world in which there's 7 billion people out there, and then there's, in the dimensional ecology, all sorts of beings that are coming in and out. So this is a really an experimental panel, a dialogue that we're opening up here, and it's meant to empower everybody so that not only ourselves, I know that this is one of the first times that I've had to address publicly, well, what's my interdimensional being? Because I really haven't addressed that even for myself. So I had to put a lot of thought to it. And we decided to go in alphabetical order. And everybody's going to have 10 minutes. And so in that 10 minutes, each person can introduce themselves briefly in their 10 minutes, and then just speak about, introduce their interdimensional being and mission. And then after that, it'll take about 15 minutes or so. We'll be enforcing the time here through our trusty timekeeping piece. Oh my God, what was that?
Telephone.
Oh.
Shut off your phones, I guess.
Yeah, it would be good. Yeah. And I'm just getting to be able to time myself here. And then we'll go on to a free-flowing conversation. And what I found with these panels is that by the end of the panel, you just end up, you don't know where it's going, and hopefully there's a lot of insights that can be built up and discoveries. So, you know, for the panelists, hopefully for the audience, and thank you very much to the panelists, to Aurora from New Zealand, to Janet from Maui, to Peter from, I don't know where you're from, Peter, because you said that you might be
Dynamics
mission, but I just don't know.
Not quite. We're still in Western Pennsylvania. Or I should say, I'm sorry. Yeah, Western Pennsylvania. Wrong end of the state. We're still in Northeastern Pennsylvania.
And Wendy G, who is represented by a beautiful painting of hers from an undisclosed location, but she is coming out represented by one of her paintings, and I applaud Wendy for her courageous act as represented by her beautiful painting. She is a fine artist. They recognize world-class fine artist with an extraordinary story that she'll be hopefully sharing tonight, or at least the relevant parts of it. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to punch my 10 minutes here and I'll introduce myself. Now, this is going to be really anticlimactic because I'm sorry, but you know, I racked myself, and it must be the conditions of my incarnation, because I haven't been told, you know, I went in and I came in and I haven't been told who I am or what kind of being I am. So what I am, you can go to my latest book, the book on the Omniverse. It's at until now, you can go to exopolitics.com or Amazon. And what I am is I'm an incarnate human soul. And that's what I am. And all souls they're like fragments of light, if you conceive of the source as a sea of light. And so by principles of holography, I am, along with everybody else on this planet, on this panel, along with everyone else listening to this broadcast, who's an earthling human who has a soul. There are many other types of people who might be listening to this broadcast and who are on Earth or in the dimensional ecology, have souls that are holographic fragments of Source. And you might ask, well, why does Source do this? Well, guess what? Because then Source gets to experience a lot of different things. Because here we have 5 other fragments of Source that are, experiencing being on a panel in one of the planets or time-space dimensions in one of the planets, in one of the galaxies, in one of the universes that we know, if we wrote out in 12-point type the number of universes that there are in the multiverse, that number, writing it out, that would be more than 260 million miles long. And we know that because 2 Stanford professors figured it out. And if you read the book on the Omniverse, which is coming out in December 2015 by Inner Traditions, and I couldn't resist saying that because I've given it all away. I've just given it away so that Inner Traditions can keep all the money, can have the Swedish translation out there, can have the Spanish translation, so that people can really, it's the first book ever written on the Omniverse. So I'm just giving it away for the benefit of the planet. It's the first book in history on the Omniverse. So I am just a soul that's incarnate in the body. Now, I've had a lot of stuff projected on me. And so I'll share with you, I'm 3 minutes into this, I'll share some of the stuff that's been projected on me. Okay, so starting in February of 1973, I was in my loft in Soho. I was then married to my son's mother, my first wife, Teresa. She was an architect from Peru, and she had designed, we had gotten a loft we had been one of the early pioneers in the Soho district of Manhattan, which is many manufacturing lofts. And we had taken over a loft that had been a warehouse for religious objects. So we got in there and there were barrels full of holy cards of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So I remember, throwing out these huge barrels full of these beautiful gilt cards of Jesus and Jesus in the manger and Jesus all over the place, okay? And we had to clear them out. And Teresa built this beautiful multi-layered thing that was featured in New York Magazine at the time. So it's beautiful, futuristic space. And I was in there, and I had just quit my job at the Environmental Protection Administration in New York. And I had met this professor at Rutgers University, professor of experimental psychology, who was an expert in parapsychology and extraterrestrial science. He knew all about extraterrestrial races, and he thought he was the Messiah. He thought he was the Jewish Messiah. So he had some kind of a complex. So there I was, and I didn't want any part of New York City politics. So I, had sort of a loose intellectual partnership with him. And it was February of 1973. I quit my job, and there I was in my futuristic loft. And Teresa had gone up to Vermont to design a ski house because we were kind of freelancing, And I was there. I was decoding biblical prophecy, which is why I admire Peter Klink so much, because he's an expert hermeneuticist. And I was doing my baby steps in hermeneutics, following the steps of Isaac Newton, everybody else. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I'm in the front of the loft, which is a studio that I had built for myself. And all of a sudden, this huge presence comes down upon me. It's like I'm inside this enormous being. And I was like being inside the Holy of Holies. And we start telepathically communicating for a long time. And all of a sudden I say, and who are you? And it says, I am the Holy Spirit. And I go, brrr. And, I was just like, and I had been raised in Catholic boarding schools where they, at 10 o'clock at night, you have to go out into the corridor and get on your knees and say prayers. And then they go in and it's lights out. You got to go to sleep, So it's this like a monastic existence I had been raised in, like back to the Middle Ages. So then I said, and who am I? And the voice says, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I shall found my church. And they go, boo. And I said, wow, man, this is heavy duty, because those are the words that I think Jesus said to Peter the Apostle.
Yes.
Said it? Yeah.
Yes.
So I go, and here I am. It's 1973. I'm 31. I just quit my job. I just started studying hermeneutics. It was my first steps down the Alice in Wonderland hole, and I go, what is this? And then for the next 8 hours until dawn, I was in this missing time, and they showed me a movie of the next, of my future life. And it's like, I can really do some good for the planet. Like, the planet might go into some really hairy times, but I can come with solutions to help. So that's my story and I can date my life from before that happening and my life from after that happening. That's like the watershed of my life. And at that point, I said, this stuff that I'm studying is real. This parapsychology stuff is real. Is that the Holy Spirit? I don't know. Is that voice to skull and some kind of CIA thing? I don't know. Is that an ET, trying to do a voice, a false kind of thing on me? One of the ET things like they did to the, Yahweh things or the Ten Commandments? I don't know. But it was real. So for the next, that was 73, for the next 41 years, I've lived with that. And I've tried to test it out. It's just a working hypothesis, and I want to see where it goes. So now I'm just a soul, and I'm a holographic fragment of God, and that's my inner higher being. And that was one of the many, many things that have been projected on me. I know in our last panel, Aurora said, well, you're an Andromeda arbitrator and you're here to arbitrate our panel. Well, that's a, I could take that one on because I've been a judge and I can arbitrate. I'll do that one. Lawyers are trained to do that. So I'm up to 9 minutes and 18 seconds. So I hope I've been a good role model for the rest of the panel. I hope I've transmitted some information of value to the panel and to the rest of the audience. And, I really hope that this panel elicits some valuable information. And that's my sum and substance. And I brought this not out of ego. This is not really trying to say, hey, look at what happened to me, because I know that ETs try to give contactees this sense of mission and try to pump them up. I'm just reporting what happened to me. And, it's just memes. It's just dealing with memes. So with no further ado, I turn that over to my fellow panelists, whose name starts with an A, Aurora, coming to us from South Africa. Okay, Aurora.
Hi, everybody.
I'm going to start your 10 minutes. Go.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be on this panel. It means a great deal for me to express my truth. I've perceived myself as a hybrid being, a dragon and a lion. So both beings are solar elements. And the funniest thing is they've always been at war with each other. But I've learned how to balance them out. This is also known as the Sethian bloodline. I do not limit myself to any specific vessel, as all are fragments of another. I merely honed this specific vessel and its capabilities to fulfill a certain function. I must explain briefly to bring clarity, though, to explain about the Sethian bloodline. There were three brothers, Abel, Cain, and Seth. Firstborn from Adam is Abel, a livestock farmer. He was murdered by his brother Cain, who was the second brother, and Seth, the youngest brother. I'm not going to go into too much detail of this specific thing, but it does explain the timeline that we're in at the moment. Cain, obviously agricultural farmer, also known as, also his name means smith or possessor of fire. Well, that's pretty much the basic sum of that. The basic thing is that they were all part of the Adam's seed, and all three brothers were sired by this specific seed, which is also the container seed for the soul, which is the microcosmic component of the one or source, as you have mentioned, Alfred. All experiencing many fragments and perceptions of itself through many timelines and lifetimes. All these bloodlines, if combined in harmonious frequency, as I've found that this theory does work within the soul, can strengthen the positive timeline in unity consciousness, thus creating a newly established awakening in humanity and multidimensional beings, likened to a newly resurrected Abel. My role is to basically maintain balance. This balance is maintained from within myself. All earthlings, that means everybody living on the earth, has got the, well, they've all got the power of the fire and the truth to eradicate the entire false unbalanced matrix, or as I call it, the mother of tricks. This frequency war is what we are working with at the moment. So it is also that we have to fight this within ourselves. So we're not going to be playing any roles anymore. A unity consciousness has got a lot to do with being completely open and truthful to yourself as an existing being. That means we've basically all evolved from where we were once. So no victim roles, no hero roles. We truly are so much further than that now. If we limit ourselves by that belief, with that belief system, we weaken this currently structured positive timeline within ourselves. And we actually don't want to do that. The actors that have been unmasked once very slowly and now suddenly much more quicker, all depends. Obviously, disclosure also happens when people start to become more aware. And this is also another way of looking at the fact that we're all connected with each other. So the more people are awakened, the more they can resurrect their unity consciousness within themselves. This balance is catalyzed by restructuring all the many timelines that exist at the time to run in perfect harmony with each other. So for example, if you visualize a textile mill and you look at timelines as gold threads all perfectly woven together, this is how the timelines are all working at the moment. And it can stay like that. It can actually be kept in that way. Time is made up of two frequencies, a high and a low. One is of the earth and one is of soul. And like a dynamo, it needs to be interacting with each other, hot and cold, one light, one dark. I basically want to wrap this up by explaining something that I've discovered a few days ago, that Cain was actually killed by his family, a seventh generation family member. So this makes me understand, or well, realize that it is possible to harness the unification of the consciousness, and this balance should be able then to eradicate this, Cain, whatever it's called now. I, however, believe that through the medium that we're busy working with, that this also helps a lot. So thank you very much, Alfred, and everybody else that's been creating a lot of these platforms in consciousness of love. This is very important. We are all well into the process of establishing the positive timeline. The old energies and role players that have had control of the planet and people, they're busy losing control, and they are fighting. There's nothing as bad as a drowning man. They try to drag down whoever they can find at the closest. It's going to be a bumpy ride to maintain this balance, but we are definitely getting there, because I've seen ahead. I definitely know by very few dreams that I've received that we definitely are there. I've also recently received information that there are also plans to overthrow this specific positive timeline, and to resurrect an old element which has had a great deal of power in the past. This being is called Horus Ra. Clearly for the fact that they like to use this whole little Egyptian thing going. This Horus Ra is an element that could further the Cain's agenda. I understand it to be called eugenics. It's mainly functioning with grey technology and hybridization. They're basically trying to breed out the soul, and well, this is quite ironic, because the funny thing is they must be really simple-minded, as the soul is the battery that runs all life. Nothing can create a soul or procreate without a soul, except one main thing, and that is the one or the source, and whom and what we are all part of. So once all of this awakening has taken shape in the consciousness of everybody, I believe we're basically on the tipping point of the new awakening. That's pretty much all I've got to say. It's that simple. That's my message. Thank you.
Well, that is very profound. The soul runs all life. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of comment on that in the second half of our panel. And so thank you very, very much, Aurora. And
Thank you.
so now we're going to go down to the Jays. And we're going to go over from South Africa to the magical kingdom of Maui.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on this panel. I'm very honored. I'm going to go from personal, like Alfred did, and we'll go philosophical later, but I'm sure I'll introduce personal, if the philosophical into the personal. I came into physicality. First of all, I'm a multidimensional being, simultaneously having incarnations in many levels and many planets, and I become aware of that from a lifetime of doing therapy, meditation, tantra, all kinds of different spiritual practices, and I came in. The veil was thin. I remembered who I was in several incarnations that are relevant to this incarnation as Janet Careless. And I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the height of the steel mill production in 1954, right after World War II ended. It had only ended 9 years before. And this was all part of the making of the Janet I was Janet Lynn Thompson at the time. I come from a lineage of Masons, and I have blue eyes and blonde hair and O negative blood, so I'm probably part of the bastard line of the Illuminati royals or whatever they're doing out there. Too bad Emily's not here today, because she and I have realized that we are family, we are genetically related, and we're also related as souls, as I suspect many of us are here. So when I came into this Masonic Illuminati family that was the bastard line, my mother was undiagnosed schizophrenic, and she had trouble dealing with a child that had past life memories. The veil was thin. The extraterrestrial interdimensional ghost would come into my bedroom, into the house. They saw me seeing them. And of course, I had to deal with my mother, who didn't know how to handle that. She was Christian, Presbyterian. She became evangelistic as a response to me being this child that was very magical. So let's see. One of my most critical initial incidents was when I was 4 years old, and I told this on a previous show, and I was out in the yard picking buttercups when suddenly I was going back into the house, and I had this bouquet of buttercups in my hand from my mother, and I had just discovered the concept of God, realizing there was something beyond what I was seeing in the 3D realm. And as I was stepping over a tiny fence, suddenly I was up on board a mothership, and they were taking me into a room that was like a theater, and I sat front and center, and the picture started showing on a giant screen. The first one was an image of the planet Earth being blown up. Beams came from 3 directions, and it became stardust. And then that scene faded, and they showed another one where the planet was whole, and there was a lot of destruction, mostly destruction, but little signs of life here and there. And they showed me 24 different potential multiverses, future histories, however you want to describe it. And some of them were, it was a climb, so it was very dark to very light. And on the utopian side, I recognized the third from the end, as one that I would like to walk my life in. And so they asked me, which universe, which multiverse do I want to choose, which reality, however you want to symbol it. When you're having pure telepathic communications, it's coming through my human filter. So I may not be saying the words that they were saying. So that's part of the confusion, is I'm trying to translate it into English. And it's a concept. These are concepts. It isn't necessarily words, one word at a time, or even sentences. You get full concepts when you're having communications with these higher dimensional beings. So I have been protected all my life, watched all my life. I'm working with the good ETs. Those are on the light side of the continuum. When they returned me to the earth after this experience, where I chose one of the positive utopian type multiverses, they said they remained communicating with me, and they said that you have come here to do something which will benefit all of humankind. And so that wasn't my only experience. When I was on board the ship, I was my eternal self. I've had a lifetime of experiences continually. So I came in conscious. I was able to levitate when I was very young. I had to stop because my mother would scream and be totally upset. I started to develop a life in response to this mother who didn't know how to handle this child, but I never forgot, and I continually sought other people who might be having similar experiences. So my brother was 7 years older than me, and we started sharing some of these things, first just by looking at science fiction. I was very cautious, and then I discovered Star Trek. When I discovered Star Trek, I realized that Roddenberry was telling us something that is actually existing, and it was very similar to what I had experienced and had been experiencing, and who I'm connected to on a universal level. And of course, they interjected the military aspect in order to get it past the censors and to allow the series to happen. There was a lot of controversy, but I followed it and worked with the Star Trek people until we got the movie. It had been canceled as a series, and we got the movie back. My contact continued all my life. I'll fast forward in time. In 1995, I was living here in Hawaii. I left Pennsylvania in '93. I came on a spiritual journey. It was a dark abyss there. People were not conscious, so just a tiny, tiny part of the population. And I was not happy. I was dying of pneumonia. I had a choice to stay there and die or to choose life. So I came to Hawaii where it was warm and I could be healthy. And I met a boyfriend, and he got a job on Johnson Atoll, which is a military installation 800 miles southwest of Hawaii in the Pacific. And it's where Dr. Michael Solon and a couple other sources since then have said that there's been many, many meetings with extraterrestrials. So when I was there, upon landing, this gentleman came over to me and said, "Congratulations, you've landed on a joint US-ET military base." And I said, "Oh, really?" And just as I started to get into the story, my boyfriend came up from behind us, and so the man walked away, and I never saw him again. But a year into my contract, I had signed a contract to be on this military base. I was civilian. I was taken one night out of my bed. My boyfriend got fired because he was an alcoholic. He's now deceased. So I had taken another boyfriend because she just started on Johnson Atoll alone. It wasn't safe for a woman to single. As soon as you're with somebody, it's safe there. And I was carried by 6 grays. They're the Eben type, or the kind of like the 4 to 5 feet tall grays. I was carried like a surfboard. The one that was carrying my right foot, we had telepathic communication. I asked him, "Why isn't anybody hearing me scream?" And he said, "Because you're in an energy field and no one can hear you." And I was taken to the edge of the beach where they brought over a little beam ship, and we launched, and my boyfriend was there as well. They took both of us and they launched us down to the underwater installation underneath. You can see it. I can send you a picture. You can post it. You can see where the water is really dark. That's where the underwater installation is. And I was taken down there.
You have 2 minutes left.
Okay, I'll wrap that up.
And you may want to talk about you as the incarnation of an Anunnaki goddess that you've mentioned.
You're breaking up.
The Anunnaki goddess incarnation.
Yes. So that's one of my aspects. I am, and I'm an Anunnaki researcher, but I covered during this whole thing who I am. Part of it was this underwater installation thing where I was introduced to 1,000 Anunnaki, and they were from the shortest was about 7 feet tall, and the tallest was about 12 to maybe 13, 14. I don't really know. I didn't have a way to measure them, but they were just very, very tall compared to me. That is my family. I am an Anunnaki. Emily, if she were here, that's our connection. We're both Anunnaki. And this is a good faction of the Anunnaki, and they're here to help us achieve ascension or consciousness, or become aware of who we are in the galactic continuum and be a part of the Federation. I was taken one time to a meeting of 100,000 unique individual species, each distinct one from another. I was a ambassador, and I reported what it was like to be a human being, female, 21st century, living in America, living in Maui, etc., etc. So Nimas is the goddess who is the birth mother goddess of humanity, who bore the first human in her womb, who was the geneticist that figured out what it would take to create Homo sapiens sapiens. And I think that's about it, right, Alfred?
Well, thank you very much. And you finished with 5 seconds to spare. I must say that the Anunnaki goddess is doing very well.
Thank you so much.
With her timing. So, boy, it's kind of hard to keep one's breath with all these stories coming in. Well, now we're going to shift over to Western Pennsylvania, and I'm anticipating this. Peter and I are the 2 male male representatives on the panel. In the era of the return of the divine feminine, I guess you and I, Peter, are kind of holding up the tradition here of the male. I'm kind of trying to figure out. I asked a question. The other day at a dinner conversation. What use are men? Of what use are men? And I didn't get a satisfactory answer. So my question is still on the table. But anyway, that's an aside.
Well, we could have a whole conversation about that. But
that one, yes.
That is a question in the Socratic tradition. It's not like, a put-down question.
Well, I can actually answer that for you.
Okay.
But let me introduce myself, Peter Kling. Many people already know who I am, author of Letters to Earth, You Can Survive Armageddon, and ambassador to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who is not Jesus Christ. There is a technical difference. They are the same soul entity. My education started a very, very long time ago, before my 5th birthday, and I was never educated in religion. I started to be educated in exopolitics, biblical prophecy, and biblical history. And that's pretty much where everything started. I was being taught by those things by people who are now the immortals. They have moved on from this planet, and they have now become higher entities, and they will remain that way. Arthur C. Clarke had a little bit of an insight with when the astronaut Bowman became the Star Child. They were the keepers of humanity. So that will be the final role of the immortals. But for right now, they are going to make sure that we are on the positive timeline and continue to the positive timeline. The last thing that I was told by one of my mentors was at a special talk that was given, and it was a talk on the universe. It was a slideshow. And after the slideshow, I had a chance to talk to this elderly gentleman who had eyes that just went on forever. And he told me something I didn't quite understand. I was 19 years old at the time. And he said, "Your future is in the stars." I didn't quite understand that until I wrote Letters to Earth, and then I got the other part of that coin. Yes, we are soul entities. We are incarnated into this physical form, so to speak, but we are also creators. And of what use is man? When you look back into the record of the scriptures, it was the man Adam who was the direct creation from Yahuwah, from Source. The breath of life was blown into his nostrils, as it says. He was created from the elements, or the stardust itself actually is what we are created from. Every scientist will tell you that. That is how the line of command, if you want to call it that, is done. We are the original form. However, it's the interesting thing, when woman was created, she was genetically engineered from the perfect DNA of man. And we've got that record right within Genesis 2, the 21st through the 23rd verses, where God says, it's not good that the man exists alone. I'm going to make a helper for him. And then we have exactly what is a genetic engineering of a human female. It says that God caused a sleep to fall over the man. He opened up the flesh. He removed a rib. He closed the flesh. He took the rib and he made it into a woman, and he brought the woman to the man, and the man said, "At last, this is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. This one was taken from man. I shall call her woman." So, two of the genetic engineers. So here's the whole thing. We have the start, and it's the divine start from Source itself. But everything else, but there we have a direct record of genetic engineering. So now we can look back through all of history. Did we evolve, or was the human 3D life form genetically engineered? Well, we would have to say we were genetically engineered. the human genome, or I should say, within the human genome, within our DNA, is the genetic information for every life form on the planet. And scientists discovered this about a year ago. So we carry all of the information for every life form on this planet, probably every life form that's ever been on this planet, within our DNA itself. Isn't that amazing? Now, that's the physical end. That's who we are in the flesh. Who we are in the spirit comes from the Creator, from Source, from Yahuwah, Yahweh, Jehovah, the zero dimension of pure dynamic energy. And when you look at what it says about the Alpha and the Omega in Revelation, it says in his own words, God says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. Before me, nothing existed, and after me, nothing will exist. Well, you look at string theory, and we have M theory, which is the extension of string theory before it goes into superstring. And it plainly says that the event horizon, which created life within our three-dimensional universe, is like two membranes coming together. And when they touch, there's an exchange of energy, and that energy lasts about 1 trillion years. We're 15 billion years into the ride. The event horizon, the alpha, to the event horizon, the omega. And we got about 985 billion years left to go. So we're doing good. This is just the start. So what's the plan? The plan was to take us to the stars, to populate the stars, to create more souls, more children for the zero dimension, for the Father, the Creator. And hence our own divinity is experienced through that. However, when we look at the record, we have rebel alien intervention. And that is clear. When you look at the biblical record, it starts off with alien intervention. They helped create us. We're created as a new species, unique to Earth. And then from there, we are taken to the next level, where we were supposed to propagate with perfect DNA and fill this planet with other human living species with perfect human DNA. And the whole planet by now would be pretty close to being filled with people with perfect human DNA on a perfect planet, without all this mayhem and craziness that we have. So you get to this little parable of the fruit, and what we have is the beta test of Earth. Because if you look before, the original seeded couple were naked, and they were good with it. After they ate the fruit, mayhem started. The first thing they realized, they were naked, and they covered themselves. Then they heard the voice of God, and they became afraid and hid. They were no longer in alpha, they were now in beta. And so the whole world is being beta tested with the ability of fight or flight, and beta is where fear lives. That is where we need to move out of. See, that's the catastrophic timeline that we're no longer on, although they're trying to propagate it. Good news is that they won't be successful. The bad news is that we are going to have to go through a little dynamic change in order to get to the positive timeline. And it's interesting. I want to read something here, because we each, listening to everyone, we each bring something to this panel. And it's recorded best in Acts, the 2nd chapter, starting in the 17th verse. And just indulge me here for a second. It says, and in the last days, God says, I shall pour out some of my spirit on every sort of flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, and your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams. And even on my male slaves and on my female slaves, I shall pour out some of my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy. And I will give wonders in heaven above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and clouds of smoke. The sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and illustrious day of Yahweh comes. And everyone who calls on the name of Yahweh shall be saved. Interesting. We all bring something here. Are we not filled with the spirit of light, which brings us together and unites us, all with different backgrounds? The interesting thing is we're soul entities. And there are a lot of different soul entities that existed before our third dimension existed.
Peter, you've got 1 minute left.
We have a fantastic future. Once we get over this little bump, you see, knowing where we're going is the greatest thing. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to ascend anywhere else. We have to do is stay here and stay in a state of love, because that keeps us in alpha. When we are in alpha, we're in harmony with the rest of the multiverse. Our destination is the stars, to have our DNA repaired and then take us to the next level, to bring us to the perfection level, where we can then populate the stars and the planets that are out there. We know there's trillions of them out there, just waiting for more human children of the Creator. How's that for a positive message?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. It's a pleasure with being here. You know, if I just might, and I know we have one more panelist, we all come with a very positive message. And even though we may face some strange things, we are all inspired. We all have different backgrounds, and we are all inspired to get to this point. And I think that is something fantastic. And the one single thread that has so far tied us all together, love.
Indeed. Indeed.
So thank you for indulging me.
Hey, everybody's got their 10 minutes. Now, it turns out that on our list, we go from A to W. In the Greek alphabet, you know, kind of stretching a little bit. That's from alpha to omega, from the beginning to the end. So we started with the alpha, and now we end with the omega. So the omega is Wendy G, the artist. Wendy, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, so the concept again is to speak openly as your inner multidimensional being. And so, you know, share with us and bring us into your inner multidimensional being, and, you know, Go for it.
Thank you. First, I would like to say hi to everybody and to thank you, Alfred, for having this panel discussion today. It's an honor to be here. And when I look at my story, it's going to be the first time I've ever shared this outside of a very small circle of people in my life. So I will go with your suggestion, Alfred, in how this began. I was 2.5 in this body, and the way it worked was I am a walk-in into a body, and what happened was what I can remember is I came down a tube really fast, and I landed on the roof of our flat in San Francisco. And in San Francisco, many of the homes have flat roofs where we do our laundry on the roof, or we hang out, or we have gardens or whatever up there. So my mother was doing laundry, and I landed about 10 feet behind her, and there was this baby over by the stairs. And I walked up to her, and I knew her, and she knew me, and I said, "Your baby is over by the stairs. She's going to fall down and die." And she said, "I know." And I said, "Well, aren't you going to help her?" And she said, "No, I want her to die." So I got very, very, very angry with her, and I ran over to try to save the baby, and the baby fell down the stairs. And it kind of makes me cry, because I remember jumping ahead of her and going down to it was up 3 flights of steel stairs on the side of a concrete building. And I jumped down the first flight to try to catch her, but she was tumbling so fast. I had to jump down the second flight to go, and I jumped over her body to get to the second flight. But by the time I had gotten to the second flight and she was coming down, she was already dying. And I watched her leave her body, and I jumped in and didn't know that I had jumped in. And my next memory was landing. I guess we could say we fell down 3 flights of metal stairs. And then what I remembered was I landed on the picket fence on my solar plexus and then on my head on the concrete. And I had a concussion for 3 days. My parents had to keep me awake. And so that was how I got here. And then I was just always aware that things were very weird here for me, and that I'm a love being, and I don't think or feel like the matrix functions. I never have, I never will. But what I remembered was feeling very weird about being here, and it hurt me a lot. I didn't understand the anger and the violence and the mean things that were going on and the way people treat each other. And so I decided to give myself some fun. I was 4 years old when I learned how to do this. I made a bubble, and it was a big bubble that was it was big enough for like a ship, and it was big enough for me to sit in. And I put all my favorite things in there, my favorite pillows and blankets and toys. And then I jumped into it, and I propelled it through the house up into the sky. And I went around, I decided I was going to go see what the neighborhood looked like. So I looked at the park and the houses, the tops of the houses, but then I saw people, and that was interesting to me. And so I moved my bubble down close to the people so I could watch them. And it was fun. And then all of a sudden I was hungry. I went home, and it was great. So I did it again. But the second time I went out and I was visiting the people, there was this Asian man who had dark reddish skin. And he was walking in the crowd just like everyone else, but he saw me. He noticed me. And I looked in his eyes, and he looked in mine. And I got so scared, and he reached up. And he was almost able to touch my ship, and I freaked out. And I pulled it away just in enough time for him to not be able to get it, but he saw that I was navigating the ship away from him, and he just stared at me. And it scared me so much. I thought, oh my gosh, I've been found out. Somebody can see me. I can't possibly go out again safely. So I never again did that, ever. I would go out without a ship. I would just leave my body and go flying when I wanted to. But the ship, I missed that a lot. And there's an energy, there's a feeling of jumping into the ship that came that I actually use sometimes during my lifetime. And now I'm almost 60. And I can remember times during my life where I've had to use that energy to lunge myself forward in some kind of way. But I didn't really connect the dots. I haven't been able to leave my body or walk through walls when I'm in this consciousness, in this state. So anyway, then when I was about 5 or 6, I decided I was going to fly. And I remember one night I waited till I thought my mom was asleep, and we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment at that point. And I got out of my bed, and I flew out, and I would love to fly down the stairs and fly around the living room. And it was just so much fun. And then one night that I flew downstairs on this one night, and there was this red light down in the living room. And I said, what the heck is that? I went flying all over it and around it. And it was very scary to me, and it was as large as I was. And I couldn't figure out what the heck it was, but then I saw it move, and I saw a little bit of a flame come, and it made me fly back. And when it's calmed down a little bit, I went closer to it again, and I looked and past it, and I saw this gigantic woman that was massively huge, mother. And she said, stop that. And I got so scared, and all of a sudden now I'm on the floor, and I fell, and I was on the floor, and I was in my body. And I said, Mom, what was that? She said, you have to stop doing that. I said, what was I doing? She said, flying around. You have to stop doing that. I said, why? It's fun. She said, because you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. You can't behave like that. Stop it. And so she never got to see me fly, and I didn't fly again for many years. So that was shortly thereafter, she decided that I was born 80 and that I didn't know how to be a child. So I went on to live my life. Now, there's a whole huge, long story that I would love to tell at a different time that we don't have time to talk about. And it does have to deal with the way that I was chosen, called by Anil and Nikki to be a part of the end time plan in Bible prophecy. And what ended up happening was very, very arduous and very, very difficult. And it brought me to a point of forcing them to expose to me who they are, because the plan for Armageddon is part of Agenda 21, and I refuse to participate because I love us all. I love us all. And what I understand about the alien agenda is that all the aliens were created by Lucifer for the purpose of testing the creator of this earth. And I don't agree with that Yahweh is our creator. I believe that Yahweh is Lucifer. And it's been proven when we study past what the seminaries offer, we can find literature that shows us. And then we have family members from the quote royals coming forward. And I say quote royals because in my opinion, these people have never been very nice to humanity. And it's been exposed that they like to eat people, and they control the Vatican and Elizabeth and the mafias and the people pretending to be presidents, or corporations pretending to become countries that are really only corporations. And it's just a big game. And it was just Lucifer creating all of these beings, including the Anunnaki, to come here and try to destroy the original creation. And I don't want to go into all of that right now because I don't have enough minutes to go into all of that. But what ended up happening for me, and why I ended up being even in a position to come forward to speak with anyone here, to contact you, Alfred.
Oh, okay, you've got 10 seconds.
Wow. Well, then I can't really finish. So we'll have to come back another time.
This is just an introduction. Okay, thank you very much, Wendy, and we'll now go on to part 2 of the panel because everybody's introduced themselves. Okay, great. Good. So now everybody's gotten kind of their first piece onto the panel of their. The concept is speak openly as to your inner multidimensional being. Okay, and we all spoke about it in terms, we're trying to communicate as best we can, and we all put it out there as best we could. And so now we're going to come to the second part of the panel, which is more free-flowing. But what we'll do is we'll still employ the concept of the talking stick so that we won't have people speaking over each other. And I know that, for example, when Wendy just came up with the issue of Yahweh, then there are other people like Peter who have a different position on one thing. So there's a duality set up there. And so we don't want to get bogged down in any particular duality or point of view, because all that we're doing is sharing individual points of view. This isn't a debate and nobody's right or wrong. We're just sharing individual points of view. And so the second round really is as follows. And that is, if you could share how is it that you're using your discovery of your inner multidimensional being as part of your what you see as your mission, or as part of healing the earth, or as part of what you see as your as your as why you're being here. And again, just to make it simple, we'll preserve the alphabetical order, and in the next round we might turn it around and go a different order. But for right now, we'll just keep this order, and this time we'll have 5 minutes, and I'll start with mine. Okay, is that okay with everybody?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So I'll start now. Well, the way that I've tried to share this ever since this event happened to me in February of 1973, where they said, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will found my church," is I kept that private for a long time. I mean, until now, basically, I haven't really talked about it. So I kept it privately basically for about 40 years. And now I'm just talking about it in occasional shows. But it's been essentially my inner landscape all this time. And it's been kind of the inner algorithm that I use to sort of direct me in my life. And what did Peter do? Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will found my church. So what I've tried to do is to be a rock, to be fairly responsible. And in a time when whistleblowers are getting blown out of the water and members of the truth movement are getting blown out, well, I've managed to stick around as for 40 some odd years in the truth movement. I've had to change countries and get multiple nationalities, and I've been teleported and dematerialized to get my, when there were assassins after me and all kinds of stuff, but I'm still here. And and I've chosen the media, the alternative media. Occasionally I get invited into the mainstream media because that's a platform for communication that's relatively unfiltered. I mean, all I have to do is get on there and speak, and I'm a 5-planet Gemini, and that's about communication. And what I've done is just to create platforms like this, and then thou art Peter, and upon this rock I'll found my church. So what's the church? So then I figured is to go out and find the most truthful people and the most truthful technology and things that I can find, and just showcase them for people like I'm doing today, so that it's really bringing together experts in every area that I can find and show them to people, be it in any area, in new energy, in speaking about your inner multidimensional being, the John F. Kennedy assassination, in the future of money, in the dimensional ecology, in whatever is the field. What I've tried to do is just be useful as being a rock, being a platform for people to come together and unfiltered, without any kind of gatekeeping, to just put them, make sure that people are safe, that they can get their voice out. So that's what I've tried to do over these last 40 plus years since that episode happened to me. And I'm just keep on keeping on. And that's about it. And, and the universe has kept on opening the way for me to do that. And it's as simple as that. And I've had a lot of interesting experiences along the way, and a lot of positive affirmation. And when I run into, and a lot of, positive affirmation from positive multidimensional sources, both ET, spiritual, human, and then running into pockets of resistance from negative spiritual, from manipulatory ETs, from negative humans, and you kind of, it's called by the seat of your pants, method of navigation. And so it's that multidimensional experience that is, basically keeps me going, and my soul navigation and being connected to source. So I've got about 30 seconds, and I yield the balance of my time to Aurora. So tell us, how do you use your consciousness of your high need, leading your life and in planning your activities and in carrying out your mission in your life?
Alfred, I've always found that dreaming is a very important part for me. It started since when I was very little, so I used to always write my dreams down. I always had the sense that I should be keeping records of them, because that's the closest thing that I could actually use to steer my way, through what's going on in life. My experience in this world with regards to the gifts that I believe I have has got a lot to do with being guided, being told, this is what you've got. You want to find this, do this. And this was never given to me by anything specific, like any visitations, for example, militaristic or anything like that. Although there was an opportunity, there was once a time where that happened, where I was visited and they were trying to put me into some super soldier thing, but I just didn't fit their mold. Like, I guess I was just too, I don't know, rough for them. They couldn't connect with me. I was quite shocked about it, that they were actually having these kinds of experiments in South Africa. I might have probably had a bit of a sort of a shut mind towards what was going on in this country. Very subtly, very quietly though. No one seems to speak about it. No one knows what the hell's going on. Everybody seems to be they have more blinkers with regards to that here in terms of what we're discussing in this platform. Although they are starting to become aware, and I have to give due to the awakening consciousness of the timeline, of this positive timeline. I've just been going about doing the alchemical work that I've been doing. I haven't done anything more different than what I've always done. I've always worked behind the curtain. I've never really tried to be in the front of anything. It's always best to sometimes work and restructure things without too much of a drama, That's how I feel. That's what I've been going through. So in terms of experiencing myself as what I've mentioned in the beginning, I've also recall of all my past lives and most of my lifetimes that I've had, and I've managed to go through most of them, although there's a few which I'm a bit sketchy about. And it's based on that I've decided to follow a different route. That's pretty much what I've got to put on the table right now. Short and sweet.
Thank you. Okay, so Janet.
Yes.
Right. So you didn't get a chance to talk much about the goddess, and that really has me intrigued. So how, because that's a very powerful concept of the inner multidimensional being. And Peter and I had a bit of dialogue, and then Peter discussed the concept of God and Adam, and and then Adam, the male, was the template for the female. And there's a lot of discussion that actually the goddess preceded God, and that God is actually female because the female is the creator, and these are things that one can debate endlessly. And we're now in the era of, even Dr. Carl Johan Kalaman says that the wave that we're in now in the Mayan calendar, there's two things that are, one is the return of the divine feminine, and the second thing is anything to do with the internet. So here we are.
Alfred, if I could interject just for a second.
Yeah.
Something that a lot of people have a misconception of, Genesis 3:15. The woman is not Eve.
No, right. You'll get your chance. You'll get your chance. Okay. So that what Carl Johan Kalaman said is that what's going on now, there are two principal trends in terms of the cosmic energy that's coming onto the planet. One is the return of the divine feminine, and the other is anything to do with the internet. That's what seems that the energy, if he's reading the Mayan calendar, the Mayan calendar correctly, those are like the priorities on the mind of God. I mean, if you just want to put it that way, the it God. So,
okay.
So, having said that, let me reset here and get ready to start your
Okay.
your 5 minutes. And how is it that your consciousness and your inner being as an Anunnaki goddess, how does that guide you, every day, 24/7 in your mission here on the planet? And, be specific.
All right.
This is meant for people to come out of the closet.
Peter left, and my cosmology is, there's Peter. My cosmology is so different than yours, Peter, because of my journey, and we're in the multiverses, and your cosmology is totally accurate for you because there's many multiverses as there are individuals. What I'm looking for is the win for all, the highest good, the solution, as the God is connected from this level, 3D physicality, all the way up to source. My identity at the God dimension, 39 degrees from to the right side of God, is named Joy. My planet maker, her name is Kira, and I came here billions of years ago to this planet Earth, and we were testing the soils, we were testing the plants, and we were looking for creating a sentient life form to inhabit this planet. What's out of balance, God is balance, masculine, feminine, and complete, and that is the symbol of the yin yang, which if you watch the Nassim Haramein interviews, he shows how that's, if you spin it, it's a singularity, and there's a singularity within each and every molecule, being, planet, from the biggest to the smallest. There's a singularity, and that is the portal, and that is why we're on a continuum, and that's why it's a holographic universe, and it's all one. Everything is God. And I can't do Nassim's work justice. You just have to follow this and find it, and we'll send them to YouTube, okay, Alfred? So we are in a patriarchal society. This is because the Anunnaki came in here. The Bible is a total warping and manipulation because there were several factions. They were the main two brothers, Enki and Enlil, who are God and Satan. They go back and forth depending on, what deeds or what they did, but they're God and Satan. Enki, basically, the story is, wanted to save humanity from the flood, and he wanted to save humanity, and his son Thoth Nagashita became conscious. he encountered the Galzu, known as kind of like the Q in the continuum, and they said that we are the watchers in each sphere. So the God in the Bible is not the God, not the big G, it's a little g. And the source and oneness is a whole different entity. And what happened with the Anunnaki is they had so few of them, there were only a couple thousand of them, and there were millions of humans. Before we bred like rats, we bred like, crazy, and so they had to figure out a psychological manipulation program to keep them from overwhelming the Anunnaki. So they created the Godhead, they created the stories, and they continue to fine-tune and manipulate them all through time in order to maintain control of this planet. And that's what we're dealing with the royals and all this bullshit about we're not equal with the gods, but we are they and they are us, and we are genetically related. And that's my cosmology, buy it or not, I don't care, but that's what I do my research on. And there's a way out of this, and let's Alfred and I talk about. What are the solutions? Can we get past this paradigm to what would it look like after disclosure? What would it look like if we balance the masculine and feminine? I'm devoted to this 24/7. I eat, live, breathe this stuff. I do radio shows. I talk to people. I talk to Alfred every couple months. We have Alfred on again. had him on a couple weeks ago. We bring the different pieces of the puzzle. We're all equally important in the divine cosmos in the continuum, and that's what I know as the goddess, as the emanation of Nima. There may be many other emanations. Souls are not limited to one body at one time. An advanced soul can literally be in tens of thousands of forms simultaneously. I know that I'm a very, very, very old soul, and I'm blessed to have activated through my work, continual work. Part of it is Tantra. In Tantra, you go into a divine orgastic state and you connect to Source through going into this orgastic state. You awaken your Kundalini, and then you remember who you are.
1
My
minute.
Okay, so I remember who I am in the continuum, and it keeps coming. Once you awaken your Kundalini and you begin the download, you become psychic aware, conscious of who you are in different pieces. Every night I get a download. Every night, there's my husband. Every night I get, I'm connected, I bilocate, I'm simultaneously here, I'm on another planet, I'm on board ship, and this you too can do. I am not special. We are all equal. We are all one. And as we waken up to this new reality, this new consciousness, we will evolve and stop having war. From the cosmic war to the war on this planet to the wars we have between couples, between family members, between friends. We've got to stop warring on all levels. And I think I'll end with that. Thank you for listening.
Perfect timing. You actually ended right on the 5 minutes. That is awesome. That is
Okay.
absolutely awesome. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for allowing me this time.
Okay. Well, now we're going to come over, and I guess we're trying to balance these two polarities around the Anunnaki, around the name of Yahweh, around the male-female principle represented, I guess, here. And so we're coming back to Peter, and we're going to ask you this specific question. And this is the question. This is the question. Yes. How are you using your inner being, your higher inner being in your mission to heal the earth and go about your work, Peter?
Alfred, I'm taking the education that was given to me by the immortals. I've taken my talents of seeing the future, which started at the age of 9. I've taken the attacks that have been hurled upon me by whatever alien species threatened to kill me at the age of 18. I've continued my research in science. I literally grew up with a Bible in one hand and a test tube in the other hand. So I use science, not some sort of ancient mythology that's jumping up and down, nor do I listen to the Anunnaki verbiage who created government and religion that caused all the problems here to begin with. When we look at science, pure science, the closest that we can get to understanding the scriptures, which we haven't been able to do successfully until we understood that we are genetic beings and understood genetic engineering, because the record's right there. But you can't turn around and use Anunnaki teachings to say, oh, well, the Bible is this or the Bible is that. That's like the Wall Street Journal saying the Daily News sucks. You know, you can't do that. They're written by two totally separate groups. The one group enslaved this world with religion and with politics. Those were the Anunnaki. And then you have the theist, or I should say, a theology of a singular God, the center of the cosmos, the center of of the 10-dimensional universe that we are within today, the dimension of pure dynamic energy. When you look at the Alpha, the Omega, and take simple physics, we cannot create energy, nor can we destroy it. We can only reduce it to its most simplest form, which it would be pure dynamic energy. Energy at its most simple, pure form or state, the God particle. And we know that the God particle, or this whole zero dimension, is intelligent and it's alive. And we know it's intelligent, we know it's conscious because it turned itself into the 10-dimensional world that we have today, the 10-dimensional multiverse. And what started it? Love. It came up with the concept of love. Something, the more you give, the better you feel. The more you get, the better you feel. You can love everything. You can love your car. You can love your dog. You can love your kids. You can love your parents. You can love your family. You can love that significant other like no one else. And what is our experience? To experience love. Why? Because we have a soul connection that goes back to the zero dimension, who calls itself technically Yahuwah, as it was explained to me by a Jewish woman who had become Christian, who was a doctor of ancient Hebrew linguistics. So the tetragrammaton, which is the symbol for the zero dimension in verbal human language, is pronounced Yahuwah. It created the Enki. It created the Christ. It created the Satan. It created all of the other dimensions at the soul level and at the metaphysical and multiphysical level. And we are the babies of creation. What was our job? Our job was to fill the earth and then fill the universe, the three-dimensional universe, with more loving children of the Creator, experiencing our own divinity from within inside. So say what you want about Yahweh, say what you want about the Bible. Hey, it all comes down to this: love and education. Because that scripture is true. If we don't have that connection right back to the zero dimension that calls itself Yahuwah, but Yahweh, Jehovah are both acceptable. And yes, they have been tried to change the meaning of the name. But let's face it, if this means your life to call on this name, and the Anunnaki say, oh, don't call on that name, it's another word for the devil, maybe we ought to give this a little closer examination. And maybe we ought to think about it at the soul level. Does connecting back to the center of the multiverse, the God dimension at the soul level, does that make sense? That we are all empowered from one central zero dimension, which created everything, all 10 dimensions in our multiverse, which can actually, according to superstring theory, go on indefinitely. And we can have a multiverse. We could, right now, in some other part of the multiverse, I'm the host and all of you are the guests, the panelists. But that's the possibility. But let's stay with what we have here. Let's learn that it comes down to the greatest commandment. It comes down, yeah, okay, say what you want about the Bible, but it's all based in love, a loving transformation. And it's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, which puts us on and makes sure we're on the positive timeline.
5 minutes to the T. You are the host.
In a different dimension, maybe.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so...
Did I answer your question?
I don't know, but you transported me someplace. I mean, we don't have to listen to this at the linear level. We can go to some other level and listen at the meta level, right?
Yeah, you know what's so great about this? Eventually, once our DNA is repaired, we are restored to our divine specification, we can think our way through the universe. We can create our own wormhole. And, hey, I think I'll go visit the kids over on Alpha Ceti 15. I'll be back in a little bit. Boom, you're gone. You visit the kids, and it's all because time doesn't actually really exist. They can now prove this scientifically. Time is something that does not exist. It's just something we keep.
Right.
It was thought to be the 11th dimension, a variable through all the others. But now through the math, math is great. They've developed the algorithms to say, hey, there is no time. It's all one.
You're getting warmed up for the third round. Will be 10 minutes of whatever you want to say. Okay? But we still have to go on to Wendy. Wendy, are you with us?
I am.
Okay. Well, this is the 5-minute round. And the question is this: how do you in your daily life take your inner being that you have acknowledged, and how do you live through that inner being openly, to go about your mission, whether it be healing the earth or stopping Armageddon or whatever level you want to come in on?
Thank you, Alfred. Peter, before I get into this, Peter, I want to tell you how fun it is to be on this panel with you. And I would absolutely thrill on having a long, in-depth conversation about this, because I have 17 years of service in the ministry and 17 years of education to go with it. And I just absolutely have learned so many things. It would be fascinating for us to have a conversation, because both of us are on the same page, which is loving kindness, the golden rule. And so that being said, I want to go answer this question, which brings me back to when I was walking in. I saw as a little girl, as a baby, that I'm a love being. I'm not somebody who, in my nature, sets out to create agendas with, how do I put this? I go to great lengths. I would rather suffer and live without than to use the womanly ways to get what I want from a man. Let's put it that way. In business, I learn how to serve instead of using manipulative sales techniques to close deals. When people teach trying to give little white lies to keep peace in the family or at work or in community, I try myself to, instead of speaking out little white lies, to just be quiet and just don't tell a lie, just don't talk about it, if it's going to cause problems. So very early on, when I was, 3, 4, 5, I became aware on this level of these things and have lived my whole life with this. So I started taking care of people and healing people when I was 3 or 4 years old. And it turned into a lifetime of education, experience. Finally, now I've actually been an alternative healer for 30 years. I've worked with many different indigenous cultures and shaman to teach me what I know. And I work as well with Western and Eastern medicine. So my whole life has been in service to others. And learning that I was an artist when I was 5, that brought me into, when I was 30, so that would be 26 years ago, I gave my hands in service to the Creator and service to doing good things. So my art and my career, everything that I create and produce, is designed to help us be kind to each other, to forgive each other, to learn how to work together, to just try to be nice to each other, really. And then what brought me to a point of coming forward with you, Alfred, is the fact that I am a multidimensional being. I do have conscious communication in other dimensions simultaneously while I'm in this body. I do talk to and work with both positive and negative ETs in other dimensions, and all my entire life, the ETs have found me physically in 3D and have been nice to me or tried to talk to me when they can tell no one else is around. And so I stayed very, 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 very quiet about all this stuff. What brought me to the point of having to come forward.
You've got one minute.
Thank you. Were metaphysical things that forced me to realize it's time to get on this front with you to come up with creative solutions on how to frickin' live this positive timeline. It's like, enough talk already, let's do it. So I asked you if we could have this panel. I asked you if we can start coming forward, and Janet and I have talked about this, and other people, and we're all talking, everybody's on this page of what are we gonna do about it? So I see this global event that's kind of like what you did with Stephen Greer with Disclosure, where it's very professional, and we have conference rooms all over the world going on, and we have people that are in media who know how to be MCs, and we've got audiences of the people and the politicians and the religious leaders and the bankers and the dragon families and anybody and everybody to come forward. And if they're scared or they don't want to, call in, but make a forum where we can just start having this reconciliation, where we can say, you know, we screwed up, and you're right, Alfred. Thank you for your last video on reconciliation. Thank you. Every word you said was divine.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Wendy. We've come to the end of that. Now, that kind of was a very interesting place, because we're now coming to the third and last round of our panel, and I think, and I'd like to take a poll of the audience. I mean, of the panel. On the one hand, we could do 10-minute segments each, because I think each member of the panel has such profound insights that by giving them 10 minutes to talk about what are we going to do, we'll get the maximal out of this. That is, how are we going to move forward on what I like to call upper theater? And upper theater is where all of humanity allows its interdimensional being to come out, because that's what the controllers are doing. They're acting from their acknowledged upper beings. We might not like their acknowledged upper beings, but that's what they're doing, because they're trying to put us in their boxes. Now, what if we all came out of our boxes at once? And so we can have that each person talks for 10 minutes, or do you want to have more of a cross talk? I found that crosstalk sometimes just ends up in more heat than light.
Alfred, yeah, let's look for a solution.
Yeah.
You know, we all bring something positive here, so let's stay on that. We have different.
Yeah.
So let's stay on the positive. Everybody make a recommendation. What can we do?
Yeah. So what I propose for the third round, and this is our concluding round, is that for 10 minutes, and we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, so we'll be starting with Wendy. We each have 10 minutes, and the subject is, what are we going to do? And this is coming at it from your acknowledged multi-dimensional self, and so bringing it in from that level. What are we going to do from here on in? Things that you have wanted to say on the panel that you haven't said until now? And it's solution oriented. What are we going to do? But it's your highest multidimensional self. It's your goddess coming in. It's your God self. It's that level that you're bringing to the panel. So we'll start with Wendy. Wendy, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Okay.
The first thing I would like to say is, as a woman, it is imperative, in my perspective, that we end the concept and the identity of feminism. I don't own a bra. I was one of the bra burners in the 70s in San Francisco. I still don't own a bra all these years later. I entered into a career when I started it over 30 years ago that was 95% run by men, and they harassed me. They harassed the hell out of me for almost 20 years. And all these years later, we're still not paid equally. We're still submitted to men. We're still being attacked and beaten and all these things. So in my mind, feminism makes men pissed off. And it's really making men feel like, well, what about my rights? What about me? Which is good. And so I feel like the first thing we need to do is to address this feminist issue, because it is a spirit of Lilith. And I don't want to spend my 10 minutes talking about Lilith. People can educate themselves on who Lilith is. And I just feel that woman is bigger than Lilith. Woman is more beautiful and more woman is a caretaker, is a caregiver, and we have an element of kindness to us and softness that has always been a support to men in when they go on the battlefield or when they're at work or whatever they have to do. And I feel at this time it's beautiful that men are becoming more in touch with their femininity and women are becoming more in touch with their masculinity. So for me, the number one thing we need to do is to learn about the schisms and the miasms that were programmed to make woman and man stand in division. And when we can heal that, then we can start to have true peace on the planet. Because we can have all the financial reconciliation and money we want, but if men and women are still arguing, it's not going to work. So I say woman has to be bigger than being a feminist. And we need to stand up and honor our inner power and truly love our men. We need to educate ourselves further on this alien agenda and understand the mind programs and understand the way that these programs work in our minds and our hearts and our guts to create reactions that cause negative relationships. So we need to learn about these programs, and we need to have the global leaders and the local leaders, the mayors, the congressmen, and everybody locally, globally needs to come forward and just say, okay, it's been exposed. Critical mass, it's beyond critical mass that this whole thing is a fraud. Now, can we create a platform, like I mentioned a minute ago, where it's a nice professional platform for people to just start the reconciliation process? And we need to turn the prisons into healing centers. I understand there's a prison in Russia that's already doing that. And we have teachers on the planet that are skilled and ready to assist with this. And we can turn these prisons into healing centers, and we can get these people that in every single city, we have people that have always since day one been vampiric, have been cannibals, have been practicing all these rituals. Now, we need more education because the Anunnaki created money and religion. So that means we need to study past what's available in seminary. We need to understand that, for example, Lucifer's names are Adonai, Allah, Ra, Muhammad. These are names that he goes by. We have names Baal, Lord, God. All of these names mean Lucifer. For us to think otherwise is ignorance from literature that has been consciously withheld from us. So we have so many people, they know the truth because of the things they've studied. My truth comes from metaphysical relationships with these guys. So my truth does not come from what I study. It comes from them, and then I have to study. So I have things I've had to study for 30 and 40 years from things that took place metaphysically that I've only come to getting the answers on right now within the last year. So I'd love to have more discussion about this and the path that I took in the religious world, which brought me to understanding that the entire thing is a program designed to control us and to keep us in division from one another. What I do stand on is that another thing that we need to do is once the clergy from the main Luciferian religions, which are Christianity, Catholicism, and Judaism, once we come together and understand in a kind way that we've been programmed, that this is our true history, that these are the names of Lucifer. And there's one book I can recommend you can get online. It's called Come Out of Her, My People. And that will give a great explanation of a lot of the names we use, what the Bible, what the meaning of the Bible is, what the meaning of holy is, what the meaning of Lord and God is. And if we can start to educate ourselves in kindness, with kindness, to just say, hey, we're all brothers and sisters, let's educate ourselves on this, and including Islam. With Islam, with regard to Islam, the nation Islam, it's not fair. Because if we educate ourselves on the way Islam is comprised, we can find that very, very, very few of their leaders actually even know how to read the texts that they have. And in different regions, there are different teachings, and some of the teachings call for war, and some of the teaching call for peace. And the people lean on what they're told instead of having the education for themselves, and the education has been so convoluted and destroyed, and it's like the people are being pitted against each other, and it isn't fair to them. They need the education so that they can realize that we are all one and we're all love. So if we can all come together on that religious level with kind discourse with one another, to educate ourselves on the history of how this all started, and then if we feel that we are service to others and we're in a position of clergy or a position of political leadership, we can say, oh, well, we have to realize that politics and religion have to become our history. What do we do now? Well, these people are created as leaders. This is their gift. So let's discuss together in a kind and peaceful way. Can these religious orders become communities? People love to get together and have meals and sing and dance and worship together. What's wrong with that? We need that. Communities need to be together. And so can we just transfer ourselves in a kind and loving way? Do we need to close down the church and sell the building? Why can't we just say, well, we've all been duped. I love you. And Pastor, I love you for being honest enough to come forward and say so. Or congregation, I love you for this information that you have brought to me so that I can educate myself further to be a better support to this community.
You've got 2 minutes, Wendy.
Thank you so much. So I just see all of us choosing to be adults and being grown up right now. And all of these games that we play, when we eat certain things, when we drink blood, when we eat the flesh, we get a different mindset, a different psychology. And it's like, I actually knew somebody that was an ex-con. He had been in a penitentiary for 10 years. And he told me that whenever the wardens needed to call the prison, when there were too many prisoners, they would feed everybody pork, because that would make everybody fight and kill each other. And so we need to look at what happens when people eat meat, a flesh of another human, or pork. It's mostly human DNA. It causes the psychopathic, sociopathic behaviors that people are claiming the royals are and that the politicians are. But we can, if we study, we can see that we have cannibals that are homeless people. So why are the royals or the politicians any more than a cannibal on the street? So if we can just look at each other as being equal, and also the royals know for a fact that everyone on this planet is royal. We're all royal. We're all divine. So
30
I just,
seconds.
thank you. So that I would like to just close with that and come back. I would like to come back more and discuss tangible, practical applications to living the golden rule. We can do this. I believe in us, and I want to be proud of NASDAQ right now. I want to be proud of our global leaders right now. I want to be proud of the dragon families right now. I don't want to keep seeing them harming everybody and each other. I want to see us do the right thing, and I want to be able to look up to these people and thank them for having what it takes to be honorable enough to come forward and do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Wendy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Wendy. Yeah, this really gets this format is a very good one, I think, and allows people to really get a lot of the depth out. And so now going back upward on the alphabetical chain, we come to Peter. And so Peter, we have 10 minutes, and the issue is, getting it all out, things that you may not have been able to do, but the focus is, what are we going to do? What are the solutions, and what are we going to do?
I would agree with a lot of what Wendy said, and Alfred, I agreed with something that you did that I thought you lost your mind on when you decided that you wanted to run for Secretary General of the United Nations and put your platform together. After reading the platform, I thought it was brilliant. There are solutions out of the situation, but those people who have been raping and pillaging this planet for the last 6,000 years need to stop their behavior and start becoming stewards of the planet. They need to stop the mind control. They need to stop the way that we're being drugged, whether it be by pharmaceuticals or by illegal drugs coming across the borders. We need to stop things like Fukushima, like carbon-based pollution, oil, the destruction of the planet. We are working for a group of rulers that are destroying the very planet on which we live. There's no future in that. There's no future in it. So it needs to change. When we look at all the prophecies, they all point to now. I'm not just talking about biblical prophecies. I'm also talking about the Mayan prophecies, the I Ching prophecies, the Hopi prophecies, that they are all pointing toward this time and place. They all carry a warning that there's going to be a paradigm change. When we look at what's written in in Revelation 17 and 18, religion as we know it's going to be done away with. When we go to 19, there is the coming of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords that will judge the King of Kings, or will judge the kings and the lords of this planet. And Alfred, if you look at what the United Nations is now moving to do with their post-2015 development agenda, they may be trying to move in that direction to not have that one total world where they're manipulating everybody and everything. But how do you get people like the Rothschilds, the Gates, the Windsors, those people who are just destroying the planet, how do you get them to change their behavior? They control the money, they control the businesses, they control the governments. So you either have to remove them or they have to change their behavior, one or the other. And then we take it to the next level. Now this is out of our hands, because how do we remove the rebel alien forces that have installed this realm of the beta test? That needs to be removed before we could have any real peace on this planet. So we have to educate ourselves, yes, to what is going on. And not just, oh, well, I'm right, or whatever the case is. We all have to work together. Wendy said something very interesting. She said family. Forget the politicians, forget the churches, forget the governments, forget religion. It's all about family. If we go back to the original seeded couple, Adam and Eve, whether you like the story or not, our genetics come from somewhere. When you go back to the original genes, we all share the same gene pool. We are essentially brothers and sisters, cousins, aunts and uncles, nephews and nieces. In a family arrangement, you wouldn't need government, you wouldn't need religion. In a perfect arrangement, we would also know about our interdimensional family, those who aren't human. We have a soul connection to them. Some of them are our spirit guides. Some of them might lead us down a path of utter destruction, but others are here to help us. So we have to examine the world around us. We have to study. You have to do your homework. It boggles my mind. I spent 35 years of research into this, and Alfred, it comes down to the one simplest thing which nobody wants to do. Love your neighbor, love the Creator. It's so simple. We do it naturally. So why doesn't everybody love their neighbor? Why do we always want to turn around and strangle the person who flipped us off on the morning commute? Road rage. Shoot first, ask questions later. It's because we're being led down this path by those who are controlling this system of evil in which we're stuck in. So this has to go. This paradigm has to change. And we know it will, because we are here to ensure that it will. We are the ones that are witnessing what is going on, so we know that this time will never be repeated again. We are the ones who are coming together to work together. We either work together in a state of love, or we'll lose out in a state of beta, fear, and fight. And that's basically what it comes down to. It's an education. It's an understanding the feminine. Men aren't better than women. Women aren't better than men. What did Adam say? At last, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. She was precious to him. But today we live in a world of disrespect. Nobody cares about anybody else except themselves. It's an I want it now, I want it my way, I'm right, you're wrong. It's a duality of working against each other. And this has to stop. We have to do our homework to make sure that we don't believe the false information. We have to do the research. But most of all, we have to pay attention to what resonates within us. And here's a simple rule. Does it follow love? Is it loving? Are you there to help protect others, to teach them the truth in a loving manner? Or are you there to organize a war party? You see, we can't change this world around us, but we can get out of the way when the change comes. Should we have an Ubuntu event and we have to rely on each other? Boy, wouldn't you love to be around all family members, one big happy family saying, okay, well, we're going to camp out for the next few months until all this is over. You know, get around the campfire and let's sing Kumbaya. Whatever the case might be, we need to work together. We need to come together. And it's through example. You can't walk up to somebody and start preaching to them. You know, there's so many people hear a preacher on TV. Quick, turn the channel. I don't need to hear that garbage. But lovingly explain it to them like a child. You know, sometimes you need to sit a child down and explain to them, you know, this is why we don't feed the puppy Drano, whatever the case might be. This is why we do certain things. This is why you shouldn't hit your brother. This is why you shouldn't hit your sister. This is why you should respect people. This is why you should live in a state of love. And once we're in that state of love, we can create the world around us a whole lot more. It's the alpha state. From alpha, we go into theta. From theta, we go into delta. This is where we create our futures from. And if we don't create our future, who's going to create it for us? Someone else, no doubt. So we need to take control, but not control from a state of, oh, well, let's go get them. Let's do away with them. We don't have a real dog in this fight. Yep, it's our planet. Where what we need to do is come together. We don't need to take up arms. We don't need to start a revolution. Let the other people who want to live in the beta fight and flight do that. All we have to do is get out of the way and live ourselves in the life of harmony, where we resonate with peace and love. You know, it's interesting. The planet itself vibrates at about 11 hertz per second. That's alpha level. When our brain vibrates at that same speed and now we are in harmony with the earth, we are in a state of peace and love. It's where we connect to the Creator. It's where we connect to each other. And we can use that ability. We're not taught how to meditate and how to pray properly and how to direct our energy. These are all technologies which have been around for a long time. And learning these technologies is something else. Going into that state of meditation and creating our futures. It's almost as easy as getting a cheese sandwich. You know, what do you want? Oh, I'm hungry. Well, what do you want to eat? You start thinking about it. And then you think about something that, oh, that sounds good. Let's go eat that. So you make whatever food you're going to have and you eat it. It's the same thing about our futures. What do you want in your future? Say it and hold it there, but build it around the state of love. There's no fear in love. There's no hate in love. There's only love and unity in love. With that, I'm going to say, read Letters to Earth. You can survive Armageddon. It's a cakewalk for those who are enlightened. For those who need to learn, the information's in there. With that, I guess this is the end of my segment. So I'm going to say love and blessings to all. It'll be interesting to see how we can all come together and help this world get through this situation. And it will be gotten through with love. So thank you, Alfred, and thank you for the rest of the panel here.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. Wow. So everybody's really coming out with profound insights and levels of frequency that can get us through. And so, moving on up the alphabet, we've come to Janet. And Janet, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good.
I'm ready.
Okay, so the basic question is, what are we going to do from here? I mean, things that you haven't put on the table. What practical steps? What upper theater steps? What are we going to do from here on to really, as beings, all bringing out our inner multidimensional self to bring our planet and ourselves up to a new positive level? What are we going to do for 10 minutes?
Okay. Well, the macrocosm reflects the microcosm and vice versa. So if we want to bring this change for the universe, we start with self. And that's what I did in my tantric practice. When we taught tantra school, we took thousands of people through their own processes, their own inner work to understand how they disconnect from each other, how they don't feel their loving oneness. And it begins with their cultural conditioning, religious programming, and societal programming. It begins with programming that we get basically when we're born. It's the God virus, and it's imprinted upon us when we're born. We get our religion, our mindset, our constructs. We imprint or reject what our parents do and our society do. And so we're always in reaction to something else, a stimuli, until we become centered, conscious, and aware of who we are in the flow of consciousness in the divine paradigm. So do your own personal work, your family of origin work, your cultural conditioning, and clear the way, clear your chakras, clear your energy centers for a Kundalini awakening. And there was a wonderful book last year, the year before, at the IUFO Congress called Solaris, and it talks about this DMT that's coming from the central sun, from the center of the galaxy. And, imagine the whole planet having a DMT awakening simultaneously. We would all get the big aha and realize what we've been doing and this game, this paradigm that we created upon which we have been inflicting harm to one another. So you can start that. Peter said, how can we love our neighbors? Well, we go past our skin-encapsulated self-sense, and we begin to connect with at least one person. So in my example, I connected with Sasha, and we have gone into a transcendence oneness experience, and we feel one another as if they were ourselves. And Dr. Michael Newton in the Newton Institute says that when we die, we are past these forms, which are solid, they're 3D, they're human form, and we are in this more permeable structure, and we actually can merge one into the other. When you do the tantric practice in life here, 3D life, you can experience that emergence and that transcendence and that oneness with one individual person. Most people go through life like a body-mind consciousness, and they're like a mind just operating their body. They're not even integrated body-mind, and if they were more integrated, they'd be more healthy and aware. But so anyway, this practice of transcendence and oneness helps you move into experiencing duality consciousness. Now you're yourself and you're not self, and you're in oneness, and you take them into consideration in everything you do. I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to go on vacation. What would my beloved think? And that can go into triadic or more consciousness when you think like your family, your tribe, or your friends. So that can keep going exponentially as you clear all your issues with each other. And it begins with self, because if you don't clear yourself and what you're in reaction to, then you get the projections and you get the transference onto other people. So notice when somebody likes you or doesn't like you or hates you or says something or projects something on you, that's your gift. And you can use that to create unity consciousness on a personal and interpersonal level. So there is a critical mass level, and this is how we change all of creation. We keep doing this one by one. Every day I wake up and I go, what can I do? I don't buy that there's nothing I can do. I find the yes in each and every day when I wake up, what can I do? And that yes keeps going, keeps growing exponentially. Notice when something is love and not love. I think the other panelists have said that. War is not love. Fighting is not love. If you find yourself being drawn into it because of your own programming, just stop, take a deep breath, change the channel. Just change the channel. Like you said, Alfred, in the previous conversation, it's like the multiverses are like a multi-dimensional highway, and you can't just go straight down. You have to kind of cross the lanes and keep going. Cross the lanes in your own mind, your own consciousness, and keep coming to the one, which is the divine paradigm of love and consciousness, win for all of humanity. From that level, we'll get to, I like what Alex Collier says, we deserve as our birthright to have all of our basic needs met. And it's insane. We're a level zero civilization. Michio Kaku says we are a level zero civilization. So how can we create this reality where it's a birthright to get food, water, air, shelter, transportation, education, right livelihood? That is a birthright. And this paradigm we have now is bizarre, because it's like it comes in criticizing people. Oh, you're lazy. Oh, you're stupid. Oh, you're Republican. Oh, you're Democrat. And it's a polarity paradigm. It goes from religions through politics, through nations. So stop the insanity. This doesn't work. We've been killing ourselves endlessly because of this program. Go back to the personal. I am a peaceful, kind, and loving being. I can do myself. And I will keep drawing upon me those experiences and lovingly be a presence where people can become calm, centered, and aware, and take personal responsibility when I go out of kilter and go somewhere and get myself centered and not blame it on the apparent other in any way, shape, or form, because it begins, what is that? Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. So begin with self. Notice where Nalachee, you don't have to participate in war. You don't have to participate in violence. Just withdraw yourself. Stop. Don't participate. Let me see what else. One of the things is the economics, and I don't have the answer, but one concept is the Gaia buck, and I saw this online years ago, that everybody's hour of labor is equal to everybody else's hour of labor. So if you want to become a doctor, it's because you love being in service to humanity and not because you're going to get $500,000 a year. So that's one of the things that I came up with. Anyway, I think that's about it. I took some notes. Religion keeps us separate because it's full of dogmatic practices. There's spirituality within that. Separate religion from spirituality, and honor the spiritual essence in each and every faith. And within that, everybody can find, I call it God's source. You can call it whatever you call it. God's source is the unity of consciousness, the oneness, where we all remember who we are in a continuum. And I have been there. I don't know how and why I was blessed to go there, but I've gone back to the Om, the all that there is, the oneness, it's Samadhi, and I've been blessed to be there. And then I've subparsed back down and recalled the thread of who I am all the way down into this form, Janet Carroll Lesson. And the proof is in the pudding. The major religions march us off to war. I do not support any religion that does or has ever marched us off to war and believes in killing. That is not love. It's just a very litmus test. It's love, not love. War, not love. Killing each other, not love. Respect everybody's consciousness, because we're all one at the highest level. I'm repeating myself. So I shall quit at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's right at the 8-minute mark.
All right. So I'll yield it to Aurora and
No. It's at the 8:08. 8 minutes and 8 seconds. So that's your that's your phone code, right?
Yes, 8:08, and that's the infinity on the side.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we're journeying over to South Africa, which is actually where the Anunnaki supposedly evolved humanity down from 12-strand DNA, light being in the third dimension, using sound technology, to a 2-strand, or at least that's what I learned when I went to Adam's calendar. I'm waiting to find out more. Aurora, tell us, for 10 minutes, what should we do? What can we do?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that everybody should just breathe because and slow down a bit, because this energy is quite quick. So, and I'm not really a quick speaker, so I'm actually slowing down myself completely to speak at the pace that I normally would speak. I would like to agree with everybody on this panel. Everybody's added something truly amazing on this plate. And basically, what I can say, if I could sum it up, is it's all about doing good and being in a loving space. That's the basic message, is do good and be in a loving space. What I'd like to add to this is that because I do a great deal of metaphysical work, I can answer what to do on a metaphysical basis. And first of all, what I'd like to explain is that this entire system is based on a personality based program. So, in other words, it's about personality. That could override the soul. Okay, because the soul is also, in its essential essence, feminine. It is also then seen as something that can be ravaged, like that is how it used to be. If you think about how the male aspect used to be towards the feminine aspect, yes, I agree it's changed. It's become a little bit more balanced. I actually have to admit that from what I've seen, there is respect towards women and towards men. In this country, I'm speaking from what I'm seeing here. Bear in mind, we are in Africa time, so everything is still a bit old school and not. There's still that sort of respect. to go back to my point, the soul needs to be acknowledged as the divine feminine, then everything else will fall into place. This is the bottom line, I think, that we're all agreeing with, is to acknowledge the soul. The only way that I've managed to sort myself out was to stop all of the interferences, because obviously, you know, there's been a lot of once you know something, you'll definitely attract wanted and unwanted attention from all types of planes of existence. And what they like to do is derail you. Prior to this discussion tonight, I was attacked quite severely, obviously for the message that's being brought across on a psychic level. So I'd actually like to address that element that might have tried to reach me through the various planes of communication that we're having right now. And it's not anybody here. It's just that there's a frequency that's tried to tune in with my frequency and has tried to derail me. It's not going to work. I've been there longer before you. If I decide that you do not exist, then that is what I decide. Because all you ever want to do is to be seen, and that is what gives you power. Hence the personality program that everybody is on this planet. So it's the same with if someone's passed on. The spirit who is seeking would like to have attention. Same as humanity, they'd like attention. So what can you do to stop that an attention-seeking child? You basically stop giving the attention. So in other words, what I've also noticed is the good behavior, bad behavior gets rewarded. That's pretty much how out of balance everything has gotten to this level. To stop the attention on the negative aspects, we have to stop looking at the negative interferers. We have to stop looking at what they're doing, because that's what they want. They want attention. The more attention you give, the more they milk you for your energy. And they leech through your soul. They leech into your soul. They leech into your personality. Your personality is based on the system that you're living in. If you're a web designer, then you've got to be in a certain state of mind. You've got to look a certain way. You've got to do this hipstery thing or whatever it is. It's all about this personality-based program that is on this planet. Now, to go back to my metaphysical explanation, the balance is maintained by platforms like these. Carrying on with these platforms. This is the only way that we can give and share what we know. People are rather lazy to read. Most people are lazy, so it's better to really look at the visual videos that we're on. Your question was, what do we do to make people become aware of themselves? Exactly what you've just been doing, and don't stop. Everybody on this panel has been doing that same thing. Don't stop. That's basically it. As far as Adam's calendar is concerned, on a lighter note, I have no idea whether it's actually existing, but I do use sound in my metaphysical energy work, and it does work on that level because it does create certain things on the planet that is necessary for the positive timeline. I don't have anything else to say other than that it's been a wonderful pleasure to be on this panel, and that everybody has really been very good with their energies, and I love all of this energy. It's much more calmer now. In the beginning it wasn't. Everybody was a bit stressed. I include myself. I have a problem talking. English is not my first language. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Alfred, Peter, Janet, and Wendy. Thank you very much for accommodating me in your solar family. And you are part of mine as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aurora. Thank you very much. Thank you. And yeah, that was 8 minutes. So people are, thank you. That was very, stop looking at the negative interference. That's quite a lesson for us all. It's true. If you look at the news, it's all, you know, if it bleeds, it leads. That's about, you know, what the news is about. And do good and be in a loving space. I guess that's another expression of the golden rule, which is another way. Well, this brings me to, I guess, Alfred, your heavenly host. I couldn't resist that one. Everybody else who's a talk show host here is welcome to pick that one up. It's a double entendre. Okay, so I'm going to put on the 10-minute rule. You know, who knows whether I'll get there or not. But so what to do? So this is how I got to that question. About a couple of weeks ago, coming out of various conversations with people, including panelists here and others, I posted the following question on social media and in my own mind. And the question was, what would it take for controllers at all levels to stop creating depopulation and torture for humanity and the planet, and instead create thrival and love for humanity and for the planet? In other words, the switch, you're just switching from let's destroy them, to let's make them thrive, right? It's just a flip. What would it take? And controllers at all level, I mean, you know, apart from, and this includes all of the minions, that is, all of the people who are in some kind of contractual, or whether they know or not, anybody who's following in that program, whether by employment or, you know, mind control, or they're on that gravy train or whatever. Illuminati with the Iranian Uzbeks, the Yahoos of the world. I just saw in my thing said that the Yahoo, Netanyahu, says that the Iranian deal is going to mean the end of Israel. I mean, it's just more, you know, more the monarchies, the Jesuits. You know, my uncle was the deputy black pope of the Jesuits. I mean, it's just like, come on, guys, give it up. You know, all of these various factions that we can go on ad infinitum. The vaunted Coneheads, who are descendants of the giants, the vaunted giants that, according to some whistleblowers, you know, that some of our colleagues have published, said, you know, occupied the solar system, and then they became the Coneheads, and they then occupied Mars, and then occupied the moon, and then occupied us, and they're behind the scenes. And some people say they're behind the Vatican. And if you look at the Anunnaki, if you look at the Egyptian pharaohs, they have these, you know, these conical heads, and they have these hats that hid them. And then if you look at the popes and the monarchs, they have crowns, and they have these miters, you know, the fake conical heads, and they're just like placeholders for the Anunnaki. And supposedly the Coneheads have 180 IQ. And I asked somebody last night, is that very high? because the average IQ is now about 110 to 115. Although the average IQ in Israel, you know what it is now? It's 90. And the average IQ in the US, for example, is 110. So, go figure. Everything is backwards. You think that, oh, the Israelis are really, but it's like even the controllers are devolving the Jews because they want them to be the fall guy. So, and then we get to other levels of the controllers like the Dracos and the Orion Greys. It seems like Orion's a really bad place, you know, or parts of Orion. You know, and there's all sorts of other sorts of beings that are controllers, and then we get to what we call the archons. And some people say that the archons are just organic. They aren't really beings, that they were present at the creation of this universe, because this universe is a flawed universe from the very creation of this universe. You know, there are a gazillion number of universes. It's humongous, to use the words of the scientists that made the estimate of the number of universes. That if you were to write out the number, almost at 5 minutes, it would be 260 million miles long, just you're writing out that number. So in creating this universe, because it's all free will, you can make errors. It's all trial and error. That some, you know, something got in there, and the archons were present at the creation of this universe, and they're kind of inorganic beings that lead to separation. And we have a word for that. We call it evil, but that's just a word. And you put a D in front of that, and it's devil. But these are archons. They're like a dimensional thing, you know. There's something you don't want in the soup. And so how do we get, you know, how do we deal with the archons in this universe? I mean, that's like, you know, and some people can say, well, what we have in the earth is that we have an archonic infestation, you know. And I have seen paranormal studies of, for example, drug habits and drug addiction. And all drug addicts, if you trace drug addicts back at the dimensional level in the subspace, there's an archonic queen that's feeding off of all of them. And people who try to take drug addicts off of drugs, the archonic queen gets really ticked off and will retaliate against the people who try to take the drug addicts off of the drugs. And we have, if you go to Dope Inc., which is, they run the drugs on the planet, and that's the highest grossing economy on the planet, is dope. It's wars and drugs. God, gold, oil, and drugs. And Dope Inc., drugs, that, you know, so there are all these drugs that are, but then that's the archons, that the archons feed off the energy of the loosh from the, Peter knows a lot about loosh, from the dope addicts. And that if you try to get rid of the dope addicts, the archons get really pissed off and retaliate at you. So we're in this really thing, and I'm coming up in 2 minutes. So the solution that I came to was, we'll have a truth and reconciliation process. And that is where we bring everybody out at all levels, including the Dracos. And the reasoning behind this is that there's a contactee called Jim Sparks, and I interviewed him, and he was a trustee. In other words, when the Greys abduct him, these are people who do it under secret treaty. He's like a prison trustee where he's been abducted for so long that the Greys allow him to go to the rest of the humans that are newbie abductees and tell them, look, it's all going to be okay. You're going to be safe. And he keeps them calm during the abduction until they're taken back. So he relates in his book, and his publisher asked me to write a blurb about it. They were supposed to put it on the back of the second edition. I don't know whether they did, but Jim Sparks was surrounded by a circle of reptilians and grays who said, Jim, go back and tell the humans that what you need is a truth and reconciliation process, because there's been so much wrongdoing by everybody who actually did wrongdoing or think they have, including us, that it's going to be a mess. So that's what you need. It's for people to come. It's an open court. It's an open forum. People get up and give their wrongdoing. There's amnesty and there's forgiveness. So I think we need a truth and reconciliation marathon by everything I've just mentioned. At the Illuminati, at the Coneheads, they come out of hiding. Wendy's actually had Coneheads in her high school class, in her grade school class, before their heads got too big. At the Draco level, I don't know how we're going to bring in the Archons, but we can. At the David Rockefeller level, I used to hang out at those levels at River House up at Northeast Harbor, Maine. You know, they were all talking about bumping off JFK. Well, I know these people. Let's bring them out. Truth and reconciliation. Let's just get it all out. And I've almost come to the end of my 10 minutes. This is so great. Thank you so much for participating. Now, in this final 2 minutes that we'll do again through reverse alphabetical order, 2 minutes to give one short sentence, just your summary sentence for final thoughts, and how members of the audience can access and or contact you. You know, a website, and if you want to tell them how to contact you, either an email address or whatever, you've got 2 minutes. So, starting with Wendy, one sentence, and don't make it a run-on sentence. Make it a short declarative sentence, and then how to access and contact you. Wendy, thank you.
And thank you. I would like to add to what you just said by suggesting that we set a date for a reconciliation, a global reconciliation forum that could be broadcasted through streaming or Google Hangouts or however it's decided, but that we would set a date, just like we have Earth Day. You said one sentence. That would be my one recommendation. As well, I have to add, people that are not looking, quote, normal, people that are hermaphrodites, for example, or people that have vampire fangs naturally and organically, different people that might have scales, people that are not physically human or looking like people think they should look, need to have a safe place. In this reconciliation time, we need to start getting over the fact that we have different beings on the planet together. We want them to be safe. We want everybody, the humans and the aliens, to be safe together, to love each other. Thank you for letting me say that. And as far as contact information, I didn't know that that would be an option. I don't have anything that I want to give to the public. If somebody would like to speak with me, Alfred, is it possible that they could communicate with you, and I'll set up an email from this point forward where we can give that to people for the
Well, I will put an email. I'll contact you after the program, and I'll put an email address in the article accompanying this this program.
Thank you. Thank you again, everyone. I'm so honored to be here with everybody. We're all so different, and we're all here for love, and it's just such a treasure, such a moment to. I hope that everyone listening celebrates that with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, wow. Okay, moving. We're moving along. Moving up the alphabetical order, we come to Peter. Peter, one sentence and how people can can access and or contact you?
Well, Alfred, I think you have hit the nail on the head with a reconciliation day. That's what we really all need to do. It's like, okay, you've done something in the past. You're not proud of it. Doesn't make any difference who you are. Change your course of action and bring it into compliance where you are now in a sense of love and caring. That's the whole thing about reconciliation. Put the badness behind us and move forward in love and peace. Do that, we'll have a fantastic future, one that you cannot even imagine yet. But that's what we need to do. It's reconciliation between us, maybe between us and ourselves, us and the world, us and our neighbors, us and the Creator. It's time to, as they say, come to Jesus. And religion has nothing to do with it. This is personal. It's all on a personal basis. And you can personally get in touch with me if you write me at one@peterkling.com. Join me on Facebook. Just look me up, Peter Kling, Facebook. Or you could turn around and go to my website, which is a little bit on the antiquated side. I'm not skilled with computer programming and building websites. Maybe one of these days I'll master it. But you can also find Letters to Earth You Can Survive Armageddon there, or Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. It is an important book. It'll give you insight on where we came from, what we're doing here, and what our future is. And we really do have a fantastic future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, great. So, moving up the alphabetical order, we're coming to Janet over in Maui.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, one sentence plus how can people contact you and access you?
Okay, I agree with the truth and reconciliation, nullity, amity, and we need to look at the needs basis for all these beings. How do we help each other get our needs met? And sometimes they're in polar opposites, so we need to look at that very carefully. There already are meetings. A.R. Borden reported to us that there is an annual meeting with extraterrestrials and humans, and they are making these level decisions, as well as Mark Richards has said that there is a global and extraterrestrial faction that they are talking in this level. So if you're listening to the show, those who are in those two organizations, the Linkage Institute and whatever the meetings were called that Mark Richards attend, please contact Alfred Weber. Or you can contact me, Janet Kira Lesson, and I'm at janetlesson@gmail.com. If you want to be on one of my radio shows or panels, Alfred, I'd love to do more with you as well. Contact me at aquarianradio@gmail.com. This is the Age of Aquarius, and we can do this. So I want to thank you, Alfred, and Wendy and Peter, and even Emily, who's not here. And who am I missing? Aurora. Thank you for being on this panel. It's been a delight, and much love and blessings, and aloha.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Yes.
Okay. So, Aurora, we're now coming over to South Africa, and thank you so much for being here and taking it, because we're almost exclusively an American in the Americas. In fact, it's we're a North American panel, and you're taking us at least over to another continent, a very important continent, that of Africa. So give us a one sentence and tell us, if you wish, because you say that you like to maintain a low profile, but I know that a lot of people have written in and say that they'd like to have more of your wisdom. So tell us more.
Thank you, Alfred. Thanks, everybody. Again, I would like to say the Truth and Reconciliation is excellent. It's happened so many other millions of years ago. It's happened then, and it's about time that it started up again. So it's great that it's actually evolving itself in this way. The next thing I'd like to say, that's part of the same sentence, is that the only way, there are ways to get rid of archons. I've gone through that myself, and I've helped people go through that as well. It's rather a very simple technique, and if people are interested, I've only got an email address. I don't have fancy websites. It's albusleonidas@hotmail.com, or alternatively, you could get through to Alfred if that's okay with you.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll put in the article, I'll put everybody's contact email so that everyone can just contact directly each speaker. And it's very interesting that you say that the Truth and Reconciliation process was successful, because of course Nelson Mandela conducted a Truth and Reconciliation process in South Africa.
Yeah.
Just briefly, are you familiar with that, and how did that turn out?
Yes, I'm familiar with it, but probably not in too much depth. I do know that it was initially booed, and then it just was okay. So that was pretty much what happened. So it's foreign. It's a foreign thing, but if it's used a lot, then the Truth and Reconciliation will become part of life, which I believe is very, very important. It's always been there through many, many lifetimes, many timelines. Very, very important. And this is very successful as far as I'm concerned. I've seen what you have done and what everybody else has done. Excellent. It's necessary to bring out the unhappy folk and give them a chance to use the talking stick. It's a very good idea. Mr. Mandela, his intention was good in the beginning, and I'd like to believe that it stayed good even after he passed on. We're still looking for people to actually experience that same noble energy that he had. Like I said, we're still looking for that, and I actually believe that it lies within everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to reset here. And Alfred, your heavenly host is next. And again, all of the other radio talk show hosts are welcome to use that one. I just am really happy that I came up with that really corny. My wife Jerry says your jokes are so corny.
Thank goodness they're corny. We need some wholesomeness around here.
You know, it was just corny. Your heavenly host. I mean, how corny do you get? Okay, here we go.
You're like my husband, Alfred. You're like Sasha, and he just laughs and laughs and laughs his own jokes, and nobody gets it. It's your someone that goes on and on.
Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Well, okay. Yeah. Here's a realization that I came to and that I shared, and that is that probably my favorite course in law school was African tribal law, which really should have been called indigenous law. And what that course was about, and what indigenous law is all about, African tribal law, we even studied Eskimo law, was restorative justice as opposed to retributive justice. And retributive justice is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And what do you accomplish by that? You know, if you chop somebody's head off, or you hang him, or you put him in a dungeon for the rest of his life or her life, what do you accomplish with that? Nothing. And in African tribal law and in, you know, these other things, it is restorative justice, where the wrongdoer comes back and restores the community. And that's the whole process of truth and reconciliation. And so that's a process that I'm very glad that the panel here thinks it's wisdom, and that we're now taking, and we're taking on the road. And we've asked candidates for 2016 in the US election to come on board. And we've asked the public to come on board, because we're quite serious about it, that the solution lies in a global truth and reconciliation marathon at all levels with humanities controllers. And people can contact us at exopolitics.com, at newsinsideout.com, and at positivefuture.com. And that's my 2 minutes. So thank you so much for joining our panel. And thank you, audience, those of you who have listened all the way through to here. I believe that this program, along with other programs in this mold, that we're doing our duty to build a positive future and to cement and land the positive timeline. You know, there are parties out there in the dimensional ecology who are trying to knock us off the positive timeline, and we're doing our duty, and we're doing everything to build a positive future. So thank you. And on behalf of all of us tonight, namaste. We salute the God within you, because that's scientifically correct in a holographic reality. We all have a holographic fragment of source within us. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.